Welcome to Caching Waves. This is an Elliott Wave update for Bitcoin. Now, before I go over my larger term trends where I think we're heading right now, just wanted to discuss the last video I posted, which was about 8 days ago. I suggested an entry here at the 1-to-1 at 59,968 with a stop at 59,005 right at this previous pivot. And we have protected that. But I also had a few other ideas, and one was that the low was either in right there, or we were expecting that this low could have been a B wave and an ABC, and we're actually getting a fourth, and we should make basically a double bottom and then reverse. So that was this area right here, and we did make that second push for the low. So if you watched that video, you shouldn't have been surprised by that, and we also protected the pivot at 59,005. So if you took that entry, you should have been well in the profit. It was a pretty nice trade setup. Now, what I was looking for this to be a low as a fourth wave was an impulse to the upside. We have not gotten that. We got a three-wave move, and then we invalidated the 1-2-1-2 by breaking this pivot here, which would have been labeled a 1-2. As you can see, we've broken that, so that invalidates that impulse. So most likely a three-wave move as an ABC. The way I would consider this bullish, okay, I'm going to get back to that. I want to go back out to the daily and talk about what we talked about previously. And there's a lot of options here, but I do have my bias that we're coming further downside shortly. So I mentioned last video, if you haven't seen that, I'll just regurgitate that here and talk about it again, is that our wave 2 was actually over here, and we had a very deep second 1-2. So the original way I had this counted was this was a expanded flat as a V wave, and then we came back and finished our 2 here, but it also can be counted as a 1-2, 1-2. Even though I'll give it was a very deep wave, it didn't invalidate because this was 5 up. That's why I had this as an expanded flat. So if that is actually what's happening, then our wave 1 comes down here, wave 2 over here, wave 3, 4, and 5. This is slowly becoming my bias. And what that means is we're correcting this entire 5-wave sequence as a large fourth wave. And that can take us pretty deep. Standard area we would expect is between the 236 and the 382 and protect the 50 as per guidelines. But I would want to see us hold this previous area here, use this previous area as support, which is around 50,000, 51,000. And we'll see how that matches up with the scenario. But I'm slowly considering this as my potential primary. Just wanted to make you guys well aware. You can see we came up just shy of the 1.618 of this wave 1 off wave 2, right up here at 76,625. We just came up shy of that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this occur. Now there is a worst case scenario, and that this is a W wave or an A. This is actually a B wave or an X, and we're in the middle of a flat, which would just grind for quite a long time, and we look for a partner like here. So that's the worst case scenario. I just wanted to suggest that. Now I'm not bearish by any means, but we have to be at least aware of these situations if we keep getting false breakouts. Something like this. If we get a move like this, after this fourth wave potentially completes, we get something like this, we have to consider that option, right? So just so you're not taken by surprise, I just wanted to mention that. I will discuss how this can stay intact from here and how this can drop. So we'll go down to the smaller time frames. Again, this is very much in play in my point of view, only because we got 3 waves off this low. Okay, so we'll go down to the 1 hour and discuss the possibilities. I gave several possibilities here last time. I considered the fact that this could be a triangle as our microwave 4, where we're still not done this third wave yet, which is still a possibility. I discussed how this could turn into a running flat, which is still a possibility. We get a 335 or a 333 if it's WXY. And the possibility I may switch my probabilities to, depending on the correction we get right here, is that we need that push down to 50K-ish at this previous area right here, using as support. You can see our range there is about 50,500 to about 52,800-ish, right in that zone. But we're going to have to pay attention, see what happens here. Now we'll talk about how this can morph into different patterns. Right now I have it as a W wave. So this is a 335 here as an ABC. So a W wave potentially. If that's the case, we'd be working on an X wave. Okay, I can get rid of this trend line for now. So we'd be looking for pivots between the 50 and the 618 of this move to the downside, just as per guidelines for this X wave. Which is right there between 66,310 and 68,000. We can obviously come higher than that if this is an X wave and we're expecting continuation down. But we're just going with guidelines as for right now. Consider this a 3-wave move complete. We're looking for a 3-wave move up or sideways and a 3-wave move down to complete a Y. So if this is our W wave, this is where we start our X wave. Now, there's no time constraint for X waves. They can be very quick, they can be very short, but I still like to put on my fib time. So this looks a little bit extreme, but it can get dragged out. We'll see between the 618 and the 1-to-1. I'd want to at least see a 382. Again, just guidelines, so that would take us out till basically May 2nd, so not too far away. As a minimum, I'm just going to move that over there for now, just for purposes of drawing out this correction. And we'd look for an equal length after off the X wave of this W wave whenever the X completes for just our time guidelines. So it might take us, middle to late May. So we're going to zoom into this area, assume this is a 3-wave correction, and we're looking for a connecting wave. So we have 3-wave move off the low. This to me looks like 5. This looks like a 5-wave move complete. Reason being is the extension here for most likely our 3rd wave. And we've had a 4th wave, looks like a flat right here, running flat, and we got our 5th wave down. So to me, this is an impulse currently. 5 waves down. So we have to say, okay, we have 3 waves off the high. This is how we can map everything together. We have 3 waves off the high, 3 waves off the low, on obviously a smaller time frame, and we have 5 waves down. So what is most likely to happen? So where my probabilities are right now is that we are in the middle of a B wave of a 3-wave move. So we have 5 waves down, so it can be the start of an impulse, which seems unlikely because of the amount of time that has passed, which is why I have us most likely in a B wave, just using probabilities here. So the next trade I am looking for, so I'll map this out for you. This is a 3, looking for a 3 and a 5 as most likely a flat. Now this can merge into other things, but as of right now, I'm just going with a flat as per labeling. So we're looking for an A, B, C up for our X. So on one time frame lower, in the middle of this B wave, we're looking for a zigzag, an A, B, C, like so. So what we're going to be looking for, you can see we're between the 50 and the 618 of this move to the downside here, between 62,407 and 63,301. So this is kind of the perfect area for us to pivot here. And we're looking for a three-wave move for our B wave. All these measurements are assuming the low is in, right? It looks like we have 5 complete and we're getting a nice little rejection off that low. We can always come a little bit lower and I'd have to re-pull these fibs, but as for right now, if this low holds, this is where I would take my measurements from. So from this wave to the downside, looking for a three-wave move between the 50 and the 618. And this is the short I'm looking for. I'm looking for a short in this area, and I'll be mapping out this correction as it pans out. Stop at the high of this A wave, and I'm basically looking for about a 2-to-1 risk reward. It'll be a quick trade. And then I'll look to flip long. So that's assuming that we get most likely a 1-to-1 extension of our A wave off our B. I'm just using this as a guideline, but you can see if we hit the 1-to-1, we wouldn't make a new low. Now C waves can go, 1.618, 1.236, 1.382 as a zone as well. But as per trading purposes, I usually just go for the 1-to-1 in these scenarios. So I would not be expecting a new low if it runs out as per guidelines. Now, if it does come to say the 1.618, we get a little bit of an extension here in this B wave, that would take out a lot of longs. Obviously, it would be a lot of volume on this candle for the C wave of the B, but I would still be looking for the C wave to the upside. I would just be switching and expecting more of a running flat as a 3, 3, 5, target the 1-to-1 of this A off this B, and then look for a short after the fact, like so. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now, just looking for this move. Looking to buy in this area, stop at this high, just looking for this move. That's the only tradable move at the moment in my point of view until we get this B wave bottom in and we get some sort of impulse off the low. Because if this is a running flat or a regular flat, we'd expect 5 waves up for this C. So we should get a nice setup in this area for that long on the micro. So that's what I'm looking at coming up here. Obviously that view will change if we happen to break this A wave high. This would have to be relabeled as some sort of flat pattern, but it looks pretty clean to me as a 5 wave, so I'm going to leave it at that. The area that's important is if we do get this move to the 1-to-1 is what happens next. If we fail on this X wave, I do believe we're going to get those further downside targets between that zone I mentioned, between like 50,000 and 52-ish thousand, 52.5 area. And what that would look like is another 3-wave move to the downside, similar to this W wave with our connecting wave as our X wave here. And if we're able to get up and above after that, and we end up trending sideways rather than impulsive to the downside, or sorry, corrective to the downside, if we end up doing something like this, that's where all these triangles, flats come back into play. Because then we'd have a 3, and then we'd have another 3, and we'd be looking for another 3. All right, so this is the area that's very important after this ABC correction is done. So that's where we switch probabilities. If we get a nice ABC with a 1-to-1 sideways consolidation, we can consider it a connector of 2 3-wave patterns. But until we get that move, my trading plan is this short. It's the BRC wave. Again, we can drop below this low and make a running flat as well, but I'll just be targeting the 1-to-1. That's if we pass the 1-to-1 extension of this A off this B. I'd then be looking for this long if we get a micro 5 waves, say down on the 5 to 1 minute, just targeting the 1-to-1 of this A wave for the C wave. And then I would reevaluate here to look for my short. And I'll explain how I'm going to do that in a further video. But as of right now, we're going to let this B wave play out. We're coming up to the weekend, so it should be some sideways range consolidation, most likely be in it. Let's look at that down at the 15-minute. So we'd look for between a 618 and 1-to-1 in time. This is just as per guidelines for our B wave to be complete. So ideally I'd be in there between late Friday and late Saturday. That would just be as per guidelines. We'd be looking for a series of sideways action here, deep correction here, not hold the 50 and 618. As you know, just a lot of grinding up and down. Looking between the 50 and 618, 64,975, 65,500, and look for this short. So we'll see what happens here. If we start getting impulsive here, that's where I would consider the fact that this might be some sort of flat relabeled, and we're actually working on a C wave in some sort of flat pattern, or a Y wave in a WXY. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too overcomplicating. Very simply put, looking for this 3-wave move, taking this short, and my trade setup will look something like that. About a 2-to-1. And then I'll be taking profit, looking for a flip long for that C wave on the micro. All right, guys, so that's it for Bitcoin. Hopefully I didn't overcomplicate things too much. I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible. That's it for this one. I'll see you on the next one.